Hello, this is Wmpyr here to talk about the katana versus the rapier. And I am not an expert in either weapon. And on YouTube, I'm sure there's been experts in those weapons talking about this. Okay. So what I want to do here is to provide a different perspective. So from a martial arts point of view, um, and hopefully that'll be refreshing. Okay. So we already know, experts have already said that the rapier is better for thrusting and the katana is better for slashing, right? So the katana, because it's curved, it goes, it's like an extension of this motion that I'm making right here. So it just works with that kind of motion. And the rapier being very, very slim and sleek, it just penetrates better. So two different techniques, two different tools. All right, makes sense, right? To me, what that says, actually, though, is that different ranges, each one. So the rapier is better suited for long range, and the katana is better suited for medium range. So a perfect example I could give you guys is an analogy. Let's compare it to boxing. So the rapier is the jab, okay? So we're talking about like a Muhammad Ali. We're talking about like Roy Jones Jr. So what they call outboxing. So you're fighting in a distance. So that's why I said long range. And you're utilizing that jab in and out real quick, that kind of fighting style. The katana, this curvature is uppercuts and hooks. So we're talking about Mike Tyson. And I said medium range. It has more power. So the katana is the Mike Tyson versus the rapier is, like the Roy Jones Jr. Who wins? Roy Jones Jr. versus Mike Tyson. And if I'm not mistaken, they recently, not too long ago, fought to a draw in an exhibition match where they both came out of retirement. So, I know a lot of people think, yeah, the katana is the far superior weapon, and I don't ever hear people say the rapier is the best sword ever made, whereas I hear that about the katana. But, the argument that I'm presenting now is going, well, it just depends. It could go either way. So now, let me go a different perspective, right? So the different perspective is, we're talking about a stand-up striker versus a grappler. Who wins? It can go either way. It's 50-50. If the stand-up striker can knock out the grappler, then they win. If the grappler can survive that attack and take them down, then the grappler is going to win. It's 50-50, right? The Muay Thai fighter versus the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. It's 50-50. It could go either way, right? That is today's perspective. Today's era, we say that. Why? We say that because it's really not true. It's not Muay Thai fighter versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. What it is they're both MMA fighters. MMA versus MMA. It's just that one person is an expert in Muay Thai fighting and the other is an expert in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. But they're really MMA fighters. So in that case, yes, it's 50-50. It could go either way. So let's go back in time to the early UFCs. So in that case, when we said Muay Thai fighter versus Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, we really meant that. It was style versus style. The Muay Thai fighter pretty much did only Muay Thai kickboxing. The Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighter only did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So when they fought, it was different. The result was not 50-50. The grappler always had the advantage back in the early UFCs. Why? Because that is the nature of combat. If two people are willing to engage in combat, and they have to, because in a sporting event, you have to. You can't just survive. You can't just run away and escape. No, you had to engage. Okay, so if you did engage, then you get closer and closer and closer. So the grappling arts dominated because that meant combat is going to be done close, and that's to the grappler's advantage. So actually in the early UFCs, this did happen. It wasn't the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy, but it was Muay Thai kickboxing versus Judo. UFC 2, Orlando Wait versus Remco Pardo. And if you watch that match, Orlando Wait, I mean, there were other stand-up strikers in the UFC, early UFCs, and there were other kickboxers and stuff. When you saw Orlando Wait, you go, now that's a Muay Thai fighter. And same with Remco Pardo. You see him and you go, that's a judo guy. And that was a hell of a match. But watch it. And you'll see that the grapplers always had the advantage in the early UFCs. All the way up until Mark Coleman lost to Maurice Smith. That's when you could say the walls came crashing down. There were other signs, small signs indicating before that. But that was the main thing where people, I think a lot of people's mind was changed, where you go, oh, okay, the grapplers aren't the most dominant anymore. We're starting to evolve. Things are changing. So, but up until that time, it was all about the grapplers. They dominated, okay? So, going from that perspective, if the katana person and the rapier person fought and they engaged and they had to fight, they went to kill, right? My money is on the katana person. Why? Because combat gets closer and closer. So medium range is closer in combat than long range. So you're talking about a long range specialist versus a medium range, and they gotta engage. I'm putting it on the katana person. Okay. Now, that being said, in a self-defense situation where you don't have to engage, if you survive, you could act scared, whatever, or you just talk the whole time and you don't engage, that's a victory. Every second you live is a victory in that sense. So in that kind of self-defense situation, I give it to the rapier, 100%. The rapier will pick apart the katana person, and they don't have to commit. And they got the faster, more agile weapon. So with the distance, they could be running the whole time. Doesn't matter. I would put my money on the rapier in a self-defense situation. So if we look at it from a different point of view, another different point of view, the rapier is a self-defense weapon. So when I say self-defense, I'm really talking about civilian life. I'm talking about city life. So yes, the rapier is a historical weapon. So historical city life, self-defense, right? Whereas to the katana, yes, was in ancient Japan. It was, they had it for pretty much EDC, everyday carry. But it came from the battlefield, so it could also be used in the battlefield. So in the battlefield, people are going to be wearing some kind of armor. If you can't afford the super nice ones, you're still going to have minimal something on there, okay? And you needed the weight of the katana to knock them off balance and then go in between the open areas to take them out. With the rapier, that's going to be harder to do. So the main thing here is that the katana is the heavier weapon, and the rapier is the lighter weapon. So of course, in actual combat, you use each strength, and each situation to your advantage. So I hope that brings in new perspectives. That's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and take care, folks.